In South Korea, fame is a roller coaster without a seatbelt. One day, you're the most beloved face in the country. The next, a name no one dares to pronounce. In 2025, the shine of some of the country's biggest actors went out brutally. Scandals, trials, and the weight of perfection destroyed careers that seemed untouchable. These are the 5 names that lost everything and proved that in Korea, falling is forbidden. For more than a decade, Su Hyun was the synthesis of the perfect actor in Korea. Versatile, charismatic, owner of a scene presence that mesmerized, he moved confidently between romance and heavy melodrama, collecting awards, audience peaks, and advertising contracts that seemed inexhaustible. On any list of Asian heartthrobs from the last decade, his name occupied the top spot by a wide margin. And for that very reason, the shock was greater when, in 2025, the immaculate image began to crack. First, a murmur on social media, then an avalanche of exposés, opinion columns, and outraged reactions. Korea has a cruel dynamic. The same tide that lifts you at absurd speed can hurl you against the rocks with the same force. The center of the earthquake were allegations about an old relationship, with the late actress Sae-ron linked to sensitive narratives that were morally explosive in the Korean context. Although much came out in fragmented form, message excerpts, anonymous reports, contested chronologies, contradictory versions, public opinion doesn't usually wait for definitive sentences to judge. Within days, brands began excluding him from campaigns, commercials were pulled from the air, contracts were put under review, and mainly public trust melted away. More than numbers, what is lost is something intangible, the aura of exemplarity that sustained his position as poster boy of an era. The professional impact was immediate. Projects that already had scheduled release dates, like his new K-drama with Disney+, went into suspension. Strategic meetings were postponed. The name that once guaranteed stability now carried uncertainty. The silence, calculated or not, was interpreted as omission by some, prudence by others. And in this vacuum, extreme interpretations flourish. For many, Su Hyun became the symbol of a system that manufactures impossible perfections and then demands burning the guilty party in the public square. It's not about relativizing mistakes, but about understanding the ecosystem. The Korean industry demands purity, and the internet rewards lynchings. Did he lose all his fame? Perhaps it's too early to say for certain. What is unequivocal is the loss of symbolic capital. That unshakable trust from the market and the public suffered a seismic shock. Is there a way back? In theory, yes, with time, transparency, precise work, and a patient reconstruction of reputation. But the pop culture clock spins fast and without mercy. In 2025, what one sees is a monumental idol looking for the first time at rock bottom and learning in the most painful way that fame in Korea is glass. It shines bright, but shatters easily. Yoo Ah-in was always an exception. While most Korean actors molded themselves to the standard of perfect behavior, just like Su Hyun himself, he walked in the opposite direction. He was the type of artist who made the public feel uncomfortable, and precisely for that reason was admired. His talent was undeniable. He shone in any role, transformed common scenes into visual poetry, and seemed destined to become one of the great names in Korean cinema history. But what no one imagined is that, behind the genius, there existed a soul at war with itself. Korea has always had a tense relationship with artists who dare to be different, and Yoo Ah-in dared too much. He spoke without filter, dressed provocatively, and challenged social conventions in interviews. He was admired by some, feared by others. Until, in 2023, came the hardest blow. The actor was accused of using illegal drugs, including propofol and marijuana. The case dragged on for 2 years, and in 2025, the consequences finally consolidated. His contracts were canceled, films suspended, and the image of rebel artist gave way to that of a man in ruins. In Korea, abuse is not just a crime, it's a moral mark, a scar that the public refuses to forgive. For a society that demands absolute purity from its stars, there is no space for vulnerability, and Yoo Ah-in, instead of hiding his flaws, exposed them. He apologized, admitted his mistakes, but it was already too late. The country that once applauded him with admiration now sees him with contempt. The media portrayed him as a symbol of modern decadence, the idol who didn't know how to handle his own freedom. Behind the scenes, sources close to him speak of crises, isolation, and frustrated attempts at starting over. In 2025, Yoo Ah-in tried to return discreetly to theater, where it all began, but was met with silent boycotts. Doors seemed to close one by one, and even former colleagues distanced themselves. Korea is quick to erase the past of those who dare to err, and he, who always lived intensely, now experienced the bitter taste of oblivion. But Yoo Ah-in's case goes beyond a simple scandal. It represents the tension between art and morality, between freedom and punishment. A man who lived on the edge and fell by by crossing it. His talent remains unquestionable, but his image is in ruins. Perhaps time, the same time that destroys reputations, is also capable of rebuilding them. But for now, what remains is the portrait of a brilliant artist who got lost inside his own mind, and who now pays the price for never having learned to protect himself from himself. Few actors lived a peak as intense and sudden as Yong Su. Until 2021, he was a respected but discreet veteran, known for secondary roles, for his impeccable theatrical trajectory, but unknown to international audiences. Then came Squid Game, the global phenomenon that changed everything. Suddenly, that gentle-spoken gentleman with sweet eyes became the most recognized face on the planet. All of Korea was proud to see him win the Golden Globe, something unprecedented for a Korean actor. It seemed like the perfect ending to an entire career of silent dedication. But, as always, fame has a price, and his arrived fast, cruel, and irreversible. In 2023, allegations of harassment came to light, linked to an episode that occurred years before. Yong Su denied it, but the investigation progressed, and in 2024 he was convicted. Even with a light sentence, the damage was already done. The image of Korea's grandpa, symbol of wisdom and kindness, collapsed overnight. Brands removed his image from campaigns, Netflix removed him from events, and the industry, which once celebrated him, now pretended he never existed. In Korea, when the subject is harassment, there is no middle ground. Either you are absolutely innocent, or you become a social ghost. In 2025, Yong Su lives in seclusion. He doesn't give interviews, doesn't participate in awards ceremonies, and avoids even the theatrical circles that formed him. For many, he went from international icon to uncomfortable memory. The public that called him national grandfather now mentions him in a low voice, with embarrassment. It's the portrait of a moral and symbolic fall that transcends the judicial sphere. It's the collapse of the idealized public figure. But perhaps the saddest thing of all is the way the country deals with old age and error. Yong Su wasn't a rising star, but rather a man who had found recognition belatedly, and who lost it when he most needed respect. His story is a reminder that, in Korea, glory is ephemeral and collective memory, relentless. The public applauds until the last breath, but one stumble is enough for love to turn into silence. And so, the actor who moved the world with a simple game of red light, green light, today walks alone, imprisoned between the weight of guilt and the void of oblivion. Kwak Do-won was never a heartthrob, but he was respected like few others. Owner of an imposing stage presence, he was the type of actor who just had to appear on screen to dominate everything around him. Films like The Wailing and Inside Men established him as one of the great names in Korean cinema, a professional of total commitment, admired by directors and colleagues. For years, he built a solid reputation, based on talent and credibility, until, in 2022, an episode would change everything. He was detained for drunk driving after being found sleeping inside his car, stopped in the middle of the road. The case, which could have been treated as an isolated mistake, took on devastating proportions. The Korean public doesn't forgive this type of slip-up, especially in public figures. Brands distanced themselves, production companies suspended contracts, and Kwak Do-won disappeared. For 3 years, he maintained absolute silence. No new films, no public appearances, no attempt to return. It was as if the country had decided to erase him. In an industry that demands perfection even from those who play villains, the label of irresponsible became a sentence of exile. When he finally tried to return in 2025, the public reacted with coldness. His reappearance on a theater stage was met with suspicious looks and harsh criticism. Many said he no longer deserved opportunities, that his time had passed. The actor, who once embodied figures of power, now faced the humiliation of needing to prove he still deserved to be heard. Kwak Do-won's case reveals something deep about Korean culture. Error is not just a moral failure, it's an eternal stain. Rehabilitation is rarely seen as possible. The public wants punishment, not redemption. And in this sense, Kwak became a painful mirror of what so many artists fear, the idea that one slip-up is enough to turn decades of career into dust. He still tries to rebuild his image with humility and patience, but the silence around his name is almost deafening. Because in the end, Korea doesn't fear sin, it fears scandal, and that, Kwak Do-won will never be able to erase. For most of her youth, Sae-ron seemed destined to be one of Korea's greatest actresses. She debuted as a child, charming audiences with a rare natural talent, and quickly became a beloved figure for both the public and critics. Her role in The Man from Nowhere transformed her into a national prodigy, and from there, her career seemed to follow a flawless path. She grew up in front of cameras, matured in challenging roles, and established herself as a real promise. An actress who would manage to cross the transition from childhood childhood to adulthood with elegance, which few achieve. But South Korea has a cruel talent for turning promises into tragedies. In 2022, Sae-ron was involved in a car accident while driving under the influence of alcohol. Images of the collision went viral in minutes. A knocked-down pole, exposed wires, closed streets, and at the center, an actress who until then symbolized purity and sweetness. The country reacted with fury. The press labeled her irresponsible, and the internet, merciless, turned her mistake into a spectacle. Brands broke contracts, projects were canceled, and the name Sae-ron began to carry shame instead of pride. What could have been a period of learning became the beginning of a spiral of destruction. She tried to distance herself, issued public apologies, but there was no forgiveness. The Korean entertainment industry is driven by the appearance of perfection, and once the image is tarnished, there is hardly any return. In the following years, Sae-ron plunged into financial difficulties, lost friends, and was gradually forgotten by the media. From teenage icon, she became a tragic figure, frequently the target of cruel rumors and comments about her appearance, her emotional state, and even her survival. In 2025, the country received the news that no one wanted to believe. Sae-ron had passed away. The circumstances remained surrounded by silence and respect, but the impact was devastating. Suddenly, all those who had attacked her seemed to remember the young girl with expressive eyes, the interrupted promise. Flowers and letters began to appear in front of the studios where she filmed her first roles, and once again, Korea found itself before the mirror, the same mirror that reflects the toxic cycle of deifying and destroying. Sae-ron didn't just lose fame, she lost the right to error, to fragility, and to rehabilitation. She died carrying the weight of a culture that demands purity, but rarely offers compassion. Her story is a painful reminder that, behind the glow of the spotlights, there are real lives trying to survive inhuman expectations. And perhaps the cruelest thing is realizing that the love she sought, recognition, affection, belonging, only came after death. Because in Korea, redemption often doesn't arrive in life, and the tears that the public sheds over the graves of their idols are, in truth, belated confessions of collective guilt.